Welcome, everybody. I'll call to order our meeting for the Salem Planning Commission for today, October 19th, 2021. Would you please call the roll, Shelby?
Commissioner Augustine informed us that he'd be running a little late, so I'll keep an eye out for him. Commissioner Goebel?
Here.
Commissioner Griggs?
Here.
Commissioner Heller?
Here.
Commissioner Kopcho is absent excused. Commissioner Levin?
Here.
Commissioner McKinley?
Here.
Commissioner Pollock?
Here.
And Commissioner Slater?
Oh, here. How about that?
Yeah, we have
Can
quorum.
you hear my here?
Yes.
All right.
We heard you here. Okay, so before we move to the consent calendar, I did ask Commissioner Heller to step in to make the motion since Commissioner Augustine is running late. And before I do that, Commissioner Heller and Commissioner McKinley, did you both have a chance to review the material so that you feel comfortable voting on the minutes?
I did.
I have, yes.
Perfect. So both of you have. So I will look to you, to Commissioner Heller, for a motion.
All right, I move that we adopt the minutes of the October 5th, 2021 meeting.
Okay. I think it's was it the 4th or the 5th?
It
Oh,
was the 5th, and on the agenda, I did put the 4th, so that's my fault. It was the 5th, though.
Commissioner Heller.
Okay.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second by Levin.
Thank you. Seconded by Levin. Discussion on the motion? Okay. Shelby, would you please call the roll and signify by aye if you're in favor of the motion and nay if you're not?
Commissioner Goebel?
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs?
Aye.
Commissioner Heller?
Aye.
Commissioner Levin?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinley?
Aye.
Commissioner Pollock?
Aye.
And Commissioner Slater? We didn't hear your eye on that one.
Once again.
Thank you. And Kopcho and Augustine are absent for this vote.
Perfect. I inadvertently skipped over item 3, public comment, but I don't believe we have anybody signed up for that. Correct, Shelby?
Correct.
Correct. So we'll move on to public hearing number 5 on zone change case number ZC 21-02. Before we do that, are there any ex parte contacts or potential or actual conflicts of interest to declare on that case? Tom, your hand is there. Is that your hand? Oh, that's my hand. Okay. No conflicts. So, Shelby, would you read the statement of criteria, please?
This is a public hearing to consider a zone change case number ZC 21-02 for a property located at 4120 Fisher Road Northeast. The criteria applicable to this application are found in the Salem Revised Code SRC Chapter 260.045B for land use designations. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Planning Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Planning Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Thank you, Shelby. Ms. Kohler, we're ready for you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Pamela Cole, Case Manager for the proposed annexation and this concurrent zone change. I request that the staff report and attachments and the presentation be entered into the record. The subject property at 4120 Fisher Road Northeast and adjacent lands, that's the official name for the annexation, would be going to hearing sometime in the near future after the Commission this evening makes a recommendation on the proposed zone change. It will be annexation case 740. Territory that's annexed into the city is automatically given the city comprehensive plan designation and zoning that is equivalent to the applicable county zoning designations set forth in Table 260-1 in Salem Revised Code, unless one or more reasons apply. The first is that the petitioner requests a new comprehensive plan or zone designation. The City Council proposes a new comprehensive plan designation or zoning designation, or the equivalent city designation in the tables inconsistent with the Salem Comprehensive Plan. In this case, the Marion County Urban Development zoning would be equivalent to city RA residential agriculture or RS single family residential zoning, but either one of those is inconsistent with the multifamily residential designation in the comprehensive plan. So the applicant is requesting RM1 multiple family residential zoning, which would be 8 to 14 dwelling units per acre under current code. And the Planning Commission reviews and makes a recommendation to council. The property for the zone change and annexations outlined here in blue. The annexation would be presented to City Council for approval later. We're tentatively scheduling that for November 22nd. The red dashed line indicates the city limits. Fisher Road, shown with the yellow line, is a collector street in the Salem Transportation Systems Plan. Cooley Drive to the bottom, shown with the teal line, is part of a proposed on-street bike network. The narrow private street and Fisher Gardens townhome planned unit development to the north dead ends into the subject property, and the other blue line is a tributary of Claggett Creek. The property currently contains a single-family dwelling and some accessory buildings. Nearby properties on the east side of Fisher Road are occupied by duplexes to the south, a manufactured home park to the east, some single-family dwellings to the south, and then that future townhome development to the north. On the west side of Fisher, we have properties occupied by single-family dwellings. I've labeled the Redwood Crossings proposed or residential care and shelter facility that's operated by, sorry, I can't get rid of that over there, that's occupied by the Salem Housing Authority, and then there are apartments, and Interstate 5 is further to the west of those apartments. The comprehensive plan designation shown in orange is multifamily for this property and for most of the properties surrounding it. Single family residential to the south on Cooley. The Marion County UD zoning is shown in a green color, so that applies to the subject property and some of the others to the west and to the north. Property to the south in purple is Marion County RL, limited residential, multifamily residential, sorry, and single family residential in the blue. The property to the west in the orange is RM2 in the city. And nearby areas are zoned RM2 to the north, and the little piece of light green is residential agriculture. The closer view shows the property and the nearby uses again. You can see the creek a little bit better. There were some trees that were recently removed, and there are still some shrubs and smaller trees that are remaining on the property in this 2021 photo. The rear yards for some of the manufactured homes in the park to the east appear to be encroaching across the eastern boundary of the subject property. So that's something that will likely need to be addressed in the future with the development proposal. We notified Northgate, and the applicant notified Northgate prior to us deeming the application complete, and Northgate just commented in support of the proposal, and one other citizen commented in support. For public agency comments, we received some from Salem Kaiser School District. They estimate that 16 students would reside in the proposed multifamily development, and they would be eligible for transportation to Chavez, Waldo, and McKay schools. They suggested that bus pullouts and a covered shelter should be provided. At this time, we're just discussing the zoning designations, but in the future with development proposals during the site plan review process, we would be looking at the standards and requirements for streets, sidewalks, bicycle, and other transportation related improvements. Other public agencies within the city, Public Works commented that their water and sewer infrastructure in Fisher Road would be adequate for future development. Fisher doesn't meet the current standard for a collector, so at the time of development, street improvements and/or right-of-way may be required. Site-specific infrastructure requirements, again, will be addressed at site plan review. Fire department had no concerns with the zone change, and they will address fire department access and water supply at the time of development, and building and safety had no concerns. The criteria under 260.045B are that the designations provide for logical urbanization. We found that the area can be adequately served by extensions of water and sewer and stormwater and future street improvements. So we meet that criterion. The designations are compatible with nearby development. We found that this multifamily development would be compatible with adjacent development in the land use designations, as you've seen on the maps. Third is that social, economic, or demographic patterns of the vicinity have so altered that the current designations are no longer appropriate. As you know, the housing needs analysis found Salem has quite a significant deficit of multifamily development and land, and this proposal would address that deficit. Fourth, that it's in the public interest that the proposed change be made, and in this situation, we look at whether the proposal is consistent with applicable goals and policies of the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan, and we did provide those findings in the staff report and found that the proposal meets all of the criteria. Therefore, the staff recommendation is that Planning Commission apply the that's the tongue-tied here. The staff recommendation is that the zone change request from Marion County Urban Development to City of Salem RM1 be applied upon annexation. And that concludes my presentation. Of course, I'm available to answer questions or to go back to any of the slides if you'd like.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Any questions for Pam on this presentation? Using your raise your hand. Commissioner Slater.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Pam, for the presentation. Is there a reason that we didn't consider like a mixed use zone there, which I think also permits multifamily development?
The applicant's choice was RM1.
Applicant's choice. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Slater. Any other questions? We'll have another opportunity. Thank you, Pam. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to speak to the Planning Commission? And you would have 15 minutes. And please state your name and address for the record. I'm not sure if it's who would like to speak.
My name is Josh Wells with West Tech Engineering. I'm representing Tony Trong, the property owner. My address is at 3841 Fairview Industrial Drive, Southeast, Suite 100, Salem, Oregon 97302. I'd just like to thank Pamela and planning staff for, I know these take a long time to get done, and just thank them for the work they did to get this to where it's at. And we agree with the planning or with the staff report, and we're here to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wells. Questions of the applicant's representative? It's a pretty clear-cut application. I'm not seeing any hands. Commissioner Slater.
Thanks. I'll just repeat my question to Mr. Wells. If you can help me understand why you chose multifamily instead of mixed use. I'm just curious, given that mixed use has some flexibilities as well.
Basically, with the constraints on the site, and the location and the surrounding uses, we thought it'd be best just to do a multifamily development.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Mr. Wells? You got off very easily, Mr. Wells. I think have no more questions for you.
I like those.
Yeah, Okay, and we don't have anybody signed up for the neighborhood association, nor do we have anybody to sign up in testimony that is not associated with the neighborhood association. Correct, Shelby?
Correct.
So then my guess is there's really not an applicant rebuttal because nothing's been stated that you needed to rebut, Mr. Wells. So any additional questions of staff at this time? And then Commissioner Slater, you are the star tonight.
If I could just see the slide again with the adjacent Salem zoning designations, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any follow-up on that slide? You good?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. And then I have a new question to ask. Would anybody who provided testimony like to request that the record remain open to submit additional evidence not yet presented? Mr. Wells, are you good?
Yes, we're fine.
Okay. Okay. No additional questions of staff. If not, I will close the hearing and I will look to Vice President McKinley for a motion.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the staff report on public hearing 5.1.
Thank you, Commissioner McKinley. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second by Levin.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. Discussion on the motion? Commissioner Pollock.
You didn't think you'd get away with me not saying anything, right?
No, I knew.
So I have no questions or issues with the zoning, but we have a unique opportunity here on a environmentally what I think is sensitive land. This according to the report, this has got the trifecta: waterways, wetlands, floodplains, land hazards. So I would just encourage the applicant and their contractor to design with nature to integrate that sensitive land into their development pattern. I mean, they get a unique opportunity with that, with the way the waterway goes across to really incorporate such a beautiful area and make that just a real jewel with the multi-housing around there. So when you go to design it, I just encourage that that you do something really wonderful with what nature's left there on your land, which of course is going across your land is going to be quite a challenge. But still, it could come out to be something really wonderful. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollock. Any other discussion before I call for the vote? Don't want to rush anybody. Seeing no other hands raised, Shelby, will you please call the roll and please signify by saying aye if you're in favor of the motion, nay if you are opposed.
Commissioner Goebel?
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs?
Aye.
Commissioner Heller?
Aye.
Commissioner Levin?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinley?
Aye.
Commissioner Pollock?
Aye.
And Commissioner Slater?
Aye.
And Commissioners Augustine and Kopcho are absent from the vote.
Thank you. Passed. Motion has passed. Moving on to 6 special orders of business. We have none. I don't believe we have any information reports. Nobody else for public comment. Lisa, Planning Administrator's report.
Talk fast. Maybe we can be done by 6.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm so
no,
excited.
our first short night. Well, we had our work session last night, which I thought went really well. Hopefully you all agree. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to let you know that we do have a draft sign code amendment that we plan to bring for a work session in January. And some of you that have been on for a while know that you do have an amendment that you've initiated for drive-through signs. And there were some previous amendments the council was working on, so we put them all together. and found all kinds of other things that needed to be changed. So we've got pretty much a whole new sign code at this point that Aaron has put together. So we'll be bringing that in January for some work sessions, and then ask you all to initiate the whole package. So that's coming up. And then I wanted to ask about the letter that you authorized to council and your annual report. So I could get your letter to council on their November 8th agenda by itself. It's like an information report is how letters are conveyed from commissions. And then one or more or none of you, whatever you want to do, could come and speak that night during public comment to the letter if you want. But I think we can have the annual report on November 22nd. And so I didn't know if you wanted to combine those things and then be there one night, or if you feel like combining it with your annual report would dilute the impact of your letter. So I just wanted to ask if there's a preference either from you, President Griggs, or the entire commission on how those.
My preference would be to separate them, because I really do think it might get lost in the rest of the messaging. I don't mind. It's Zoom again, I'm assuming, right? We'll be still Zooming.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't heard any different.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
Commissioner Slater, what do you think? Because you were kind of our impetus behind that.
Well, thank you. I'm fine with your preference. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
So then we'll get the letter on the November 8th. And then President Griggs, do you think you would come that night and speak to the letter, or Commissioner Slater, or?
I think
and
Commissioner
or
Slater
others?
should do it, actually, if you're available.
Oh, I'm available. Yes.
Hey, then you should do that. And then I'll do the annual report one.
Okay, I'll contact both of you with information about how to sign up for those things. And the annual report, when I get a draft, I'll send it out for you all to review, and then we send it off to have somebody else make it look pretty and put pictures in it and whatnot, and then I'll give you another review. So you
Thanks,
should see that
Commissioner Slater,
soon.
for stepping in. Good.
And that was all I had. Oh, except I did hear Commissioner Pollack and Commissioner McKinley make it sound like you guys were done in December, but I do want to point out that you can continue on the commission until your position is filled. So I hope if you're not replaced,
I think Josh is planning a party already.
I know.
Is that supposed to take a while?
Yeah, it could take a year.
Counselor Lewis, it took him like 6 or 7 months to get
Oh, come on.
replaced. So, and then maybe you'd be here for the Salem hearing. So that's a thought if they don't fill your position right away.
I think
It's
Right.
definitely
has
your
a question.
choice. Commissioner Fry was like, I'm out of here. I'm not staying one moment longer. So
That's
it's up
what
to
I'm
you.
gonna be
But
doing.
just
So
wanted to
Commissioner
put that out
Pollack has a
there.
question for you, Lisa, and then Commissioner Slater.
Actually, this was for Commissioner Slater. I second your motion with the letter. And because West Salem, and I'm part of West Salem, was like really behind it. Do you think that you want me there at the Zoom meeting to support you, not talk, but just like, or I could just say I support the letter and everything,
I would be happy to have you there, and if you want to take the lead, I'm happy to second you. It's,
No, I don't want to
doesn't-
take the lead, because right now I don't think West Salem's too thrilled with me because of the decision I made on that one thing, but still I second it because I knew on their behalf, I think it was a real important issue. So I want to be there, with you, but I don't want to take the lead. No.
Okay, well, I'm delighted to have you there.
Okay. And then as far as well, it would be good to stay on the Salem, but I like have this big thing of like shredding of all the stuff that and I'd already put that stuff in the shredding bag. So okay, so I'll talk to you later about that.
Yay, she's on the hook, Lisa. Commissioner Slater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lisa, I'm wondering if we can do something to track new mixed use zones. I'm concerned that maybe people will take a pass on the opportunity to use mixed use and instead stay with one of the more traditional zones. Is there a way that we can just kind of stay on top of that as a commission every so often?
Yeah, I mean, you mean track when people, like how much mixed use is added, or when people?
Yeah, whatever's simpler.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Sure, we do mean, it's all kind of crazy right now with our Salem because there's so many proposed changes, but at the end of every year, the GIS analyst gives me a report of all of the zones and the acreage in each zone and in each designation and how much was added or subtracted, and then how much it's, so, and sometimes I'll be like, how did we lose 2 acres of this? And we dig in and it's like half of it was right away dedication or something, because then it comes out of it. But so we started doing that about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago to keep on track of the multifamily, just year over year to see what's going. So that's something we can provide the commission every year. We do push the mixed use zones and pre-apps, and sometimes people are interested, but I'll tell you the design standards scare people off, So when we start saying, well, it's got to have an urban look to it, then their idea of like the cost of the apartments, for example, like, oh, well, I don't want to do any commercial, I'm not a commercial developer, and the design standards are not like a 3-story walk-up like apartment that I'm envisioning, and so then they don't go that route.
So that's
some of
that strikes me as important information.
Yeah.
That
and I would say like
some disincentives to go with mixed use because of that.
Yeah, and it really, I guess, depends on the location too. This one on Fisher Road, mostly residential, right? And it's, the street doesn't have a lot of sidewalks and that kind of stuff. So while it might be good to have services, I don't think people can envision it as like a dense kind of built up urban development on that street. Whereas something on State Street, or we had an applicant choose mixed use one on Wallace Road, right? Shockingly enough. And that's I think the first one we've had where somebody has asked to go to the new mixed use zones. But they were wanting to do a mix of commercial because it's Wallace and put their apartments behind it. And so they were able to make that work. So we do try to push people, but.
If I may, my worry is that we'll get, long blocks, dense blocks of mixed use of multifamily housing, and then not a lot of services connected to that. So I think just over time, it would be good to pay attention to that if we could.
Yeah, I agree. And I the mixed use zones allow development to be all multifamily. It would have to look more urban and kind of like the MU2 zone, you have to have, in the MU1, you have to have the tall first floor. So it's easier to convert in the future, but it could still be residential on the ground floor. So Eunice and I talk about if all these mixed use areas just end up apartments, so we didn't get any commercial. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I think that's something we're going to need to monitor over time. And if so, potentially change some of those zones. But a lot of cities that require services on the ground floor then just have tons of like empty commercial spaces. Because there's not enough commercial to fill it. So it's definitely an odd balance.
Lisa, remind me on the Old State Hospital grounds where they're doing all the multifamily housing and then the single family on the periphery. Isn't there a component of mixed use?
Yeah, absolutely. So the development that's going there is single family and multifamily zoning. And then the portions that the state still owns is mixed use 1.
Okay.
So they own the vacant part on Center Street, and then they own the historic dome building.
Right.
And so those are both mixed use 1. And I believe the state is trying to sell them now to a developer, offload those properties. So again, it could all end up being multifamily. It would have to have those, look more urban, but hopefully if somebody's going to buy it and it's on Center Street, they're going to buy into the mixed use, zoning there and do some services that would really help that neighborhood. So
and then the challenge is keeping that dome building in the historic district,
absolutely
building. Commissioner Pollack, and then Commissioner Slater, did you have a follow-up on that one?
I was just going to ask if the historic dome building will be preserved. I mean, is that locked in now? The exterior?
Yeah, it's okay. It's in the historic district. The
where my office used to be, Commissioner Slater.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And without the commitment, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Good.
A different sort of commitment, but yes. Commissioner Pollack.
In all the smart growth research that I did, when you're talking about smart growth, it basically, and I wish Ashley was still here, is we're talking about a developer's toolbox. And a lot of incentives to ask them, to try to get them to do mixed use. Like for instance, and I did bring this up in the subcommittee, is one, a designated person, maybe, that the commission, that the council would give you extra money for a designated person that will handle, that gets the expertise to handle the mixed use and then expedite the application, and then other types of incentives. And I kind of spoke about this last night, to get them to do, to do the mixed use. So I think, I think maybe as a planning group that maybe you should sort of get your guys going and saying like, let's come up with some kind of incentive toolbox to increase our incentive toolbox for mixed use, because I think that would be really great, because all of this means nothing if we can't get a mixed use along the corridor. The whole idea is to get them out of the cars and walk to the shops. And of course, I think it'd be easier along Lancaster, but in other areas, I think the toolbox, we need to sort of just embellish that toolbox.
Commissioner Goebel.
I just wanted to add my 2 cents on that as far as the mixed use goes. And what I've seen is I think there's a lot of developers that see a huge asset in having sites that would have like a multifamily development that's oriented around their own, open spaces and parking and like a traditional housing complex, but then on the site, but separate, having a convenience store, or a coffee shop, or a what have you. And that kind of isn't super feasible with the way that the current mixed use zoning set up, because they're not necessarily interested in having, the sort of downtown look or the awnings and the separation of the ground floor from the upper floor. And that I think there is some incompatibility with that, with the development potential for what mixed use like practically looks like versus what the kind of code envisions this specific design of mixed use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we do allow mixed use on the site versus just in a building. And so like the urban kind of design wouldn't apply if you put like the multifamily behind. It would apply to the front building. But it has to be 2 stories and have awnings, but you don't necessarily have to have the multifamily in the building. And so you could do kind of a 3-story walk up behind it. And actually, I think that's what the developer on Wallace is doing on that mixed use zone. So I think, and I know you work in the development community, so I think that's makes a lot of sense, because the cost of construction for apartments, if you're in a building with an elevator, 4-story building, is much higher than the 3-story walk up. And so that really, I think, is a factor for a lot of developers trying to make that pencil. Yeah.
Commissioner Slater.
Yeah, well, this kind of raises the question of whether we should provide some flexibility in multi-use to allow some commercial activity that isn't currently allowed. Or maybe there is some allowed. Can a multifamily have a coffee shop or a convenience store right now?
Like just in a straight multifamily zone,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yes.
I think you can have like barber shop and beauty salon, that kind of thing, but you can't really have just straight retail. So I don't think you could do a coffee shop.
Grocery store or coffee shop would not be allowed at this point.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You can do a planned unit development, which nobody does anymore. There's a lot of them in the 80s, and nobody does them anymore. Like, for example, Creekside is planned unit development. You can do single family, multifamily, some sort of combination. And generally you have like an open space type amenity is what your development's built around. Mm-hmm. If you do that kind of approval, you can have what they call them convenience areas, and you can have small scale like coffee shop, dry cleaner, that kind of stuff. But the process and the standards to get a planned unit development are kind of onerous. It has to come to planning commission for a hearing versus like doing a subdivision, which only comes to planning commission on appeal, that kind of stuff. We've noted that is like a chapter we would like to redo and tackle and see if we can make it easier, but we kind of haven't got to it because we've been working on
Other
mixed
things.
use and making the multifamily easier. So yeah, maybe that's a way, either getting rid of that and making it so you could do it in the multifamily zones like you're talking about, or
Right.
coming up with something in between. Yeah.
Well, maybe 2025, we can talk about that.
Well, I was going to say, Commissioner Slater, I think, Lisa, that's your newest item on your next UDC.
Tell Bryce and Eunice to put it on the list, and they'll be like, what happened at Planning Commission? Why are you
Well, we
giving
got
me
some
work?"
more ideas.
At least,
Well, it's 6:05, so I won't ask any more questions.
Okay, let's move to comments for the good of the order. I just have one. Our Downtown Rotary Club, I know it sounds really kind of a little stodgy club. It's really a fun club. We are having on the 27th, Dr. Mix from OSU. He's going to talk about the UN climate change report. So I think that, Josh, I don't know if you want to come, but anybody's welcome to come. And if you're interested, let me know and I'll send you the information. We meet at the Heritage Center on Wednesdays at noon. Other comments for the good of the order? Seeing none, yay, Yahoo, 6:06, we are adjourned. See you guys later.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.